Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Objective. And we're going to be talking about something a little bit spicy today. Is objectivism helping or hurting your dating life? And I think the sort of answer to the question might be applicable to other areas of life as well. Just a quick reminder, we're going to be in London March 28th, that whole week, doing all types of live events, which you should come to. And then that weekend is Ayn Rand Con there in London as well. Stick around for that, attend that. And of course, the day after Ayn Rand Con is a special event with me, the details of which will be announced later. So yeah, come hang out, see you that week, and hit us up on the website link below with any questions you have. All right, let's get down to business. We are here with, well, back by popular demand, one of all-time favorite co-hostesses. It's Maria. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me again. It's good to be back. And what a topic.
Yeah, what a great topic. Okay, so I guess should I go first just because my opinion is probably a little bit more I don't know. It's like the affirmative, or no, it's the negative. Yeah, it's the affirmative. Is it hurting or helping? I guess there is no affirmative position. It's affirmatively hurting, I think. Not always, not by design, but philosophy is serious business. When you adopt a radically new philosophy with minimal life experience, as many young people do, you sometimes or oftentimes kind of replace Ayn Rand's life lessons with your own actual experience. And what you end up doing is actually missing out on a lot of opportunities, I think. And that, again, it's not by design. Objectivism is a philosophy for living on Earth, but oftentimes people sort of misintegrate, they misunderstand. And I think at the end of the day, oftentimes, it does more harm than good to people's romantic life, but it doesn't have to be that way. And maybe we're going to change that by sort of demonstrating and conceptualizing what happens. So what do you think of what I just said?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree that. So the issue lies in the application, right? I think when we ask ourselves the question of today's episode, is objectivism hurting or helping our lives? First, let's ask, what do we mean by objectivism? It's a philosophy, a system of ideas, which provides us with a framework for life. So then the question is, does the consistent application of its principles help or hinder? And that's where I think people can go wrong. And the issue is not the objectivism itself. It's you, it's me, it's all of us who call ourselves objectivists, rightly or wrongly. So I think if the question was, if I had not become an objectivist, would I have had a more abundant dating life? Would I have had more dates? Probably. The answer is yes. But I think because they wouldn't be driven by rationality, they could then cause more pain later down the line. Yeah, and I think the conventional view, again, is that objectivism does hurt your dating life because you have higher standards, you are much more picky about who you choose to date. But I think the reality is that it helps your life when applied correctly, because it helps you to ask the right questions of the people that you want to date. And yeah, helps you to weed out the wrong ones. Now, and I think we've all made this mistake when you first, or if you're young, I guess, if you're a young objectivist, you tend to rationalize, you're a bit too theoretical about the philosophy without having any real life experience. You tend to dismiss anyone who's not an objectivist. You feel people are not on your level. You feel misunderstood, lonely. So yeah, you probably end up not giving people that are not objectivists a chance to prove themselves. So your dating pool becomes even smaller than it already is. So yeah, I don't disagree with you, but I do think that as people mature, it should help their lives, their dating lives immensely, because it helps you to ask the right questions. It helps you to look for how people reach conclusions, the method that they use. And I also think it helps you to look out more for how people act and what people say. I think a lot of the time people will say something like, I'm an altruist, or I love altruism. And that definitely triggers someone who's an objectivist. But I think what you need to then understand is, most people will say that because they think this is what's expected of them. They give lip service to something like altruism. But then as an objectivist, what you should do is actually just observe how people act in a certain situation. And yeah, I think that helps in your dating life more than it hinders.
Yeah, so I've never heard somebody like say the words "I'm an altruist." More often, objectivists enter that conversation, or they meet people with this preconceived opinion. Like anyone who is not an Ayn Rand student is de facto an altruist, shares the moral premise of the communists, and all these things, which, as we know, most people are very mixed, just like every society we live in is very mixed. It's very hard to judge people accurately. It's easy to judge them frivolously. So I think actually that my view is the non-conventional one. I think the conventional view among fans of Ayn Rand is like, oh, we get it. We're perfect. All we need is for other people to read the same books and to agree with it, and and it'll all work out. So I sort of, I've got a bit of a less, so to me, yeah, like I liked what you said early on, which was like, the question is like, what do we mean by objectivism? Is that, yeah, you said that, right? Like, what do we mean by objectivist? It takes years and years, I think, to really understand a philosophy. It takes years and years to gain enough life experience for philosophy to even mean anything, right? It's all theory. That's why you don't just teach it to a toddler and think they'll just grow up to be rational or to understand philosophy. We're mostly collecting data, and in no place is that as apparent as in relationships, right? Until you've had contact with other people, and it's not only romantic, but until you've had contact with other people and learned what people are like and learned about yourself with other people, you don't really know what it all means. So I think, philosophy, it's heavy equipment. I like to say heavy equipment is a great thing. Technology is a great thing, but you better use it right. And it can be very damaging if you're not using it right. So look, ultimately, obviously, we're here on a network that promotes objectivism. We want people to study objectivism, and ideally many people to agree with it and to embrace it. But there's also, I think, some warnings that that should sort of come with the label, and that's kind of the way I see it. I'd rather see people take much longer to even call themselves objectivists. Like I don't know, late 20s. I read Rand as a teenager. I think late 20s, I started to think of myself as an objectivist. I think not to say, not to like pat myself on the back like I'm so perfect, but I think that's healthier than, young people just, taking the oath and running out into the world and feeling like they have all the answers, especially when those are the years they need to really be collecting data. So, I mean, I think we basically agree, but do we disagree? What do you think?
I mean, I want to have a more optimistic, and I think that I do, although I also have to say, I don't know, I'm single. I don't know if you are, but I think people are triggered when single people talk about, dating lives. And it's almost like if you're single, you're not qualified, whether you're an objectivist or not, to talk about something like this. So I can only talk about personal experiences and like my dating life before I became an objectivist, my dating life after. I think my dating life after was better because I was more selective, but selective for the right reasons. The philosophy gave me a framework and a method by which I sorted people based on, kind of real qualities. I think, before you get into objectivism, the things that you look for are quite shallow, or they're set by society. You're kind of like, oh, I want someone kind and funny, but what does that really mean? So yeah, I think it's definitely helped me, but I think again, and I agree with you when I think people should be a little bit reluctant to call themselves objectivists, because again, once you get into labels, you start thinking of the other side as like the enemy, and even like dating apps, they're so limiting. They, when you're asked about your political views, like the only options that are there are conservative and liberal. But again, what does that even mean? You kind of only get down to what a person opposite you, or when you're on a date or on a romantic quest, what do they really mean with those labels? And I think the same applies to objectivists. I like to think you're not an objectivist. You're a person who is rational, who applies reason in dealings with other people, and that's all that you have to look at it like. Again, objectivists like to say like, oh, I have high standards, but that's not the same as saying I will only date objectivists. That's where people, I think, go wrong, and that's when they end up hurting themselves, and that's when they start believing that objectivism is hurting them. So I don't know. There's a lot of ifs, but like you said, philosophy isn't easy, and it's not for everyone. I think sometimes when, again, if you're an objectivist, it also means that you end up being one of the few rational people in a predominantly irrational world, or at least you feel that way. So I think you start looking at it like, I'm healthy and everyone around me is unhealthy. So by default, my opportunities are limited to have a fulfilling dating life or fulfilling relationships. But I also think you need to understand that if that is the case, that's the reality of things. These are the opportunities that you have, and you need to operate within that framework. Yes, possibilities and opportunities might be limited if you're an objectivist. It would be better if there were more heroic, self-aware, mindful people out there, but that's just a reality to accept. I don't know.
Yeah. So like when I hear you say that things like before you, like when you're not an objectivist, you're more shallow in terms of what you look for. I think that's a profound statement. I don't think that really holds up. I think we've got a lot of people in the world. And there's just a lot of people looking for depth. A lot of people are into various types of art that depict that a lot of people, they want that. A lot of objectivists or people that are into Ayn Rand are as superficial as they were before, and maybe even more so. So I realize I'm sort of stereotyping objectivists when I say that objectivism hurts a lot of people's lives, when they're young or when they kind of misunderstand it. So I understand I'm kind of stereotyping as well, but I do kind of hear that. So
can I just ask you, can I quickly
sure.
interject? Sorry,
Yeah.
I don't want you to lose your train of thought. But
no, I'm out of things to say. Go ahead.
So is it that objectivism, is it objectivism as a philosophy, or it's wrongful application that is hurting people, or is it that objectivism attracts a certain type of person who maybe is already quite shy or rebellious, or I don't know, slightly drawn in, who's not very maybe sociable, and it's those things that are probably then magnified by this new philosophy that they've adopted and are enamored with, but don't know how to apply to their real life because they haven't really applied anything to real life yet.
Yes, no, yes, as though like all of the above, but not all of the above. I mean, I don't think it's objectivism itself. I think if we look at the philosophy, it deals in fundamentals, right? It doesn't give you like concretes. Rand's novels have some concretes that I think people sometimes like wrongfully take as like, this is a one size fits all prescription. So, Howard Rourke's interaction with Dominique, people think like, oh, then that's what a relationship should look like. And to a young person, that's attractive. I mean, when I read The Fountainhead, I said, so you mean, I felt like, I wouldn't have said this out loud, but like, so you mean to tell me if like, I just kind of just stay put and work on my architecture, then this bombshell is going to show up and all that's going to happen. I mean, even with those sort of adolescent thoughts, I kind of knew it's not exactly going to work that way, because there's so much evidence that you need to put effort, and that Howard Rourke and Dominique are not the only model of relationship. But I don't think there's anything wrong with the philosophy. I fully agree with the philosophy. I think it is the wrongful application, and I think probably the most common wrongful application, since we do grow up in a world with various conflicting ideas, and also we grow up with obviously a lack of experience, in light of being young and growing up. We end up trying to substitute someone else's philosophy, like someone else's inductive knowledge, that is Ayn Rand, her inductive knowledge, substituting that for experience. And there is no substitute for experience. So yeah, it's that. Now, I mean, the question of what types of people are drawn to objectivism, I think is a very interesting one. So there was probably a time where like people like you and me probably wouldn't be having this kind of conversation on any type of public forum. Like there's probably a time, I think, when like anyone who was like affiliated with objectivism was like a career intellectual or something like that. So the fact that we've got people that are like a little bit more, not career academics and, a little bit more in touch with pop culture and all of that, maybe shows that the times are changing. I've met plenty of people that are seriously interested in objectivism that are very comfortable with relationships and the opposite sex or whatever sex they're attracted to. Like a lot of people who are very comfortable with that. So I don't mean to imply that like objectivism is often used improperly, but when it comes to like the hyper intellectual types or the sort of introverts, objectivism can be used as sort of to mask insecurities, kind of like, well, no one's good enough for me anyway, because there's such a small pool of people that are good enough. And I'm just like, when I hear people express that sentiment, I'm like, dude, do you know how many people there are out there? And do you know how many of them, if you met, you would like drop everything and try to, get a chance with them? Like, it's just absolutely presumptuous, I think, to make such a leap about, 8 billion people. So
it is. I don't disagree, I guess. So what's the solution, right? So you identify as an objectivist. There is no going back for you. How do you make the philosophy work into your favor so that the answer to the question of today's episode is it will help you? Is it about getting out there in real life and interacting with people and kind of forget about the philosophy, just live your life, be yourself, learn from mistakes, make mistakes? What is it that is lacking within the objectivist circle for the purpose of making their lives better in terms of dating?
So first, how like life is a process. So as you're saying that, I'm thinking like, well, being an objectivist is not exactly a static thing, is it? It's like a process of learning and constantly integrating. And I think the ultimate way to understand objectivism really is to learn the process by which Ayn Rand came up with the philosophy. And that's kind of a lot of the training that goes on, off of the internet. When you go to get trained by the most bona fide philosophers, because I think to know a philosophy really is to know how it developed, and that makes it inductive. It's like from the ground up. So I would avoid thinking about like, I'm an objectivist, like what to do now. It's more like, I know this sounds generic, but like, I'm a person. I've got a certain amount of knowledge and experience. I'd like more. I'd like to get to know more people. Like, look how much I've gained from the various relationships and experiences I've had. I'd like more of that. And I think the more that we mature, if we're doing it right, we tend to sort of do away with even that type of categorization. And you see some of the most knowledgeable objectivists, I think, are married to people that don't even consider themselves objectivist. So I mean, I think that tells us that like to really be integrated and inductive, it sort of usually implies that you don't really think in those terms so much anymore.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's where like maturity comes in as well. But that's why I think once you get to that level, when you're not just identifying yourself as, that's it, I'm an objectivist, I've arrived, what now? I think that's when the philosophy really starts to work into your favor, because you are a bit more grounded, you've gained experience, you've stopped being too theoretical about it. So yeah, maybe the answer is it's not something that will help in the immediate, like in the immediate present, but you need to know how to apply it consistently, and generally life will be better. Everything should get better when you are applying a good philosophy consistently and correctly to your life. So your dating life will also just be better as a result. But what does that mean? I think it means that you become maybe better at judging people. You are more self-aware. You kind of know what you want and what you don't want. So the quality of your dating life increases. That's what I think it kind of means. It doesn't guarantee that you're gonna find one partner for the rest of your life. or that you're not going to make errors, or that the person that you meet, that you're going to be with them forever as well. There are quite a few objectivists that I think have had divorces and then new marriages. So yeah, it's just like any other, just like any other people, except, you know, there is this framework that you can use to make your life better.
Yeah, look, obviously I'm a big fan of objectivism. It changed my life, and it's a big part of my life. And it's an ongoing source of value, but, and so there's no but. And I think like the main, one of the many sort of contributions that Ayn Rand adds to philosophy as a field is her emphasis on values. So to me, it's the value pursuit that is sort of at the center of it all. And it's there all through the philosophy. It's in the epistemology. It's everywhere. I mean, it's not easy to demonstrate how it's in the epistemology, but I think it kind of is. Like when you focus and perceive an object, you sort of subtly have an opinion of it. I mean, but I should really leave that alone for now, because that's a bit above my pay grade. But point being, values are there throughout. So yeah, like if you're inspired by Ayn Rand's work and her philosophy really kind of impacts you, and you are then interested in doing the work, both like academically, but also like introspectively, like kind of sorting through your inner world and looking for mixed premises, contradictions, all of that, it ought to be to the end of value pursuit, and the main one often being like career or creativity, stuff like that. And when you're doing that, you tend to be more serene. You tend to be less upset about the state of the world. You get to be less quick to judge people you don't know. And that's attractive. And as you meet people that you find attractive, you are more likely to get out of your comfort zone and make an effort. And if you fail, you know, you use that energy to pursue the next value. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely the case that, that objectivism can help enhance your dating life, just like the rest of your life. But that's kind of how I see it. Like it's values are a thing in reality that you pursue. Philosophy is, it's all abstract, right? There's no objectivism anywhere to reach for and to walk towards. So I try to think of philosophy as more of like kind of like a list of fundamentals that kind of help me in pursuit of those values. I don't know if that answers the question that you posed, but
yes, it does. Do we have any answers or questions in the super
let's
chat?
Find out.
Are people engaging with us?
Let's find out. Marilyn,
I do have a question though that I then wanted to ask you.
Are you going to forget? Don't forget.
No, I won't.
Okay. Marilyn with $5 says, I used to be kind of a jerk. I'm a nicer, more benevolent person because of objectivism, though the benevolence part took me a long time. Well, that's good that here you are. Will with $4.99 says, what are your top objectivist pickup lines? Do you have any?
Who's John Galt?
Yeah, there you go. How about, hi, I'm John Galt. There you go. That should work. Rat Lover with 20 pounds says, here's what I think. I don't think objectivism can hurt your dating life. I think it can only help your dating life or your single life if you use it properly, rather than not using objectivism properly. I can't disagree. Jonathan with $3.99. Thank you. Marilyn with $1.49. Robert with $10 says, loving this conversation. Use philosophy for its intended purpose. Lead a fun, enthusiastic, happy, successful life. That's the most attractive and sexiest thing you can do. Lust for life for the win. All right. Marilyn with $5 says, if some identifies as objectivist, that's no guarantee that person would make a good partner. I made that mistake, learned a lot. All right. Duncan with $9.99 says, welcome back, Maria.
Thank you.
Roland with $4.99 says, if you apply objectivism correctly, it can help you become a person more worthy of being loved. I'd say that's certainly a huge positive. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So let nobody think that I'm discouraging anyone from studying or agreeing with objectivism. It's just be careful, because it is serious business. It is heavy equipment. Okay. Do you have a question?
Well, two now. So I think objectivists are and I don't know if this is just an assumption, but there's like a clear division between the very optimistic objectivists that, like, I think like Robert, they just have this, and to repeat his words, lust for life. You know, they're excited about living life. They aren't bogged down by the messed up state of the world. You know, they don't focus on the negatives, they focus on the positives. And then there are the objectivists that feel like everything is doom and gloom. They feel very lonely. You know, they feel like ostracized. Is it because of the philosophy or not? I don't know. I don't know what the definitive answer is, but I think those are the ones that can be hurt by objectivism. So yeah, I don't know if this observation is worthy of airtime, but yeah, let me know what you think. And if you don't think anything about it, I'm going to move on to my next question.
No, I do think about it. I mean, look, people are complex. Psychology is complex and largely unknown at this stage of history, I think. And psychology, the relationship between psychology and philosophy is probably the reason why psychology is still in its infancy, as far as I can tell. So why some people are so pessimistic? I mean, we would have to factor in what Ayn Rand calls sense of life, kind of like early life evaluations of things around them and what was around them, like what were they exposed to early on. And I mean, there's a lot that goes into what makes people the way they are. And look, a lot of times I wake up the doom and gloom type of person. And to me, like getting to a benevolent, positive state of mind is an achievement. I mean, that's kind of one of the things I work towards. So to me, like lightheartedness is not like some easy thing, you know. I don't have the orange personality, right? There's different colors. Have you heard of that? The orange, which one are you? Do you know your personality?
No. What's the orange one?
The orange ones are like the fun guys. They're the ones that everyone loves to see at their party. I'm green. I took the test in high school. I'm green, kind of outside the box. I was the only guy in class who was green. We had a couple yellows. Those are the enemy. They're like they're the responsible and well-behaved ones. I was the green. And then you had orange are the fun people, and blue are like kind of also responsible, but a little bit more like emotionally a little bit more emotional. I don't know why I'm sharing all of this. Yeah, like, so I sometimes I am that doom and gloom person, but at the end of the day, like what gets you from there to somewhere better? It's how selfish you are. It's wanting values. So it's wanting things. So, you know, I often say on this show, like, people are not selfish enough. You know, how's the world ever going to change? People need to be more selfish. People need to say, what I want in my life is bigger than collectivism. It's bigger than, you know, giving my life for some pipsqueak country I happen to be born in. Like, people need to really want their own, they need to want happiness. They need to want values, and that'll make them want liberty. That'll make them want to, you know, get rid of bad philosophies and embrace a new one. So too with an individual person who's already found objectivism. The only way that philosophy is going to change that person is if, you know, he or she really wants enough and is driven towards those things. So it's very easy, you know, to read Rand and then just say, okay, so nobody's good enough for me. I'm going to retire to the basement. Thank you all and goodbye. What can get you out of there is actually being more selfish than that. So there's kind of so selfishness really is, I guess you can say, a virtue.
I agree.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I probably in my young age was that person that felt, okay, no one understands me. I'm isolated. I'm never going to meet anyone who's like not on the same level, not because I felt like, you know, I was better than other people, but I think it was more like I felt isolated. I felt like I wasn't impressed by a lot of the people because they haven't had this transformation. But again, that was foolish. And I think, and I guess, yeah, I kind of use myself as an example because it's kind of the only real life example that I have. But I think with time, objectivism definitely helped in my romantic quests. But the question that I also wanted to ask you, I don't know if we have time for this today, or maybe this is for another episode, is do you think that objectivism has a different effect on men and women in terms of their dating life? Like, do you think it's harder for men or harder for women? Or maybe there isn't that division at all.
So like all sort of stereotypes, they're not an absolute, and depending on the stereotype, they could be completely inappropriate. But I mean, one stereotype that Leonard Peikoff once said in his Understanding Objectivism course, he says, he qualified it for like 30 seconds, kept repeating, this is not an absolute. Don't take this as a sweeping statement. He said, generally, women tend to err on the side of empiricism, and men tend to err on the side of rationalism. So empiricism being like concrete bound, like kind of pushing philosophy away, like not taking ideas very seriously. Whereas the error men are more likely to make is like taking ideas super seriously and, not even realizing there's concretes in front of them. And I mean, this to me seems generally true, even putting aside objectivism. Women tend to have stuff in the fridge and, flowers and stuff like that. And a man could be running $1 million company while not even realizing that like the house is on fire. Like these are stereotypes. They're not always true, but there could be some truth to these differences. So yeah, I mean, so maybe when it comes to like students of objectivism, it could very well be the case that a lot of young women or women of any age discover Ayn Rand, and they're not eager to like understand all the nooks and crannies of the philosophy itself. They are still kind of basically integrated, or like they're sort of taking it slowly. So that sounds like, it seems like kind of a more of a healthy approach. Whereas a young man might read Ayn Rand and completely become rationalistic, start wagging his finger at the world, and he sees the girls as superficial, right? He thinks like, oh, they're not even objectivist. They don't even know what the philosophy is. So there's sort of truth. Like it is sort of true, but like I'd rather see people. So I like, to me, the sort of the former example of like girls doing that, I think to me seems a little healthier. And by the way, the young men reading objectivism, also being a young man is the most miserable position, right? You're a young guy, unless you're exceptionally good looking or successful. A lot of girls your age are they're not even talking to you. They're talking to older guys. So, you got all this feeling of rejection and lack of experience, and you don't really have a lot of success to show for your life. So all of this is happening with you. You're a young man. You still got some adolescent insecurity and rage. And now you're reading these books that are speaking about, oh, you can be a hero and the world might not understand you, and you can be like John Galt and go off, do your own thing. A lot of men can end up rationalistic and then miss out on opportunities, because what they should be doing is getting out of their comfort zone. So there are some of my thoughts.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I agree, but I kind of wanted to see, wanted to get your thoughts.
Well, so you said in your younger days you were kind of on the more negative side. Were you saying that was would you say that was before even reading Rand altogether, or was that as a result of reading Rand and not really understanding it yet?
Yeah, no, the latter for sure. I mean, it took years and years, and I mean, even now, sometimes I think again that I should avoid the title objectivist, because it's a big responsibility to call yourself that. And we can all make mistakes in our application, even if we know it well. I mean, the philosophy. But yeah, no, I think it was definitely when I read Rand, and again, I was so taken aback by it. I just wanted to scream from the top of the roof. And I was upset that people didn't understand what I was saying, didn't agree with me. But again, probably my delivery was very wrong. I'm kind of very different. 10 years later, I'm very cautious about how I talk about objectivism or Ayn Rand to other people. I think I was just way too excited, way too impressionable, in my younger days. And that's when objectivism would hurt me, because again, I was too young and inexperienced to begin with. Didn't have a lot of experience in dealing with other people, but also had this whole new philosophy that kind of felt like a weight on my shoulders. Like I loved it, but it was a lot to bear, and I didn't know what to do with it. I'm guessing that's the kind of the passage that most people go through when they discover objectivism.
A lot of people do. And you know, when you read Rand's novels, her characters are screaming it from the top of the roof, and they do get it. And like they'll, you know, you don't see them sort of coming down from that cloud and then realizing like, well, you know, it's going to take me time to apply this philosophy. And, you know, those are artistic choices for whatever reason that Rand did like the art that she did. Her books were not about, you know, young people gaining maturity in the way that people need to do in the same respect that we're talking about today. So yeah, it's like you read these books and a part of you wants to feel like, yes, like this is it. I'll never need to worry again. Like I remember as a teenager dealing with, you know, depression, anxiety, all this stuff I was dealing with, reading, you know, Howard Roark's speech. I remember just like putting the book down, being like, is this it? Am I never going to have a bad mood again? Like, am I never going to be need to worry about, like, am I always going to feel confident? And, you know, the truth is, for better and for worse, you need to work for whatever it is you want. You know, like nothing's going to be handed to anybody. So it's, you know, those are the facts. So when it comes to, you know, romantic pursuit, you're going to get hurt, most likely. You're going to fail, most likely. And, you know, what you do with that, I think determines, you know, kind of what comes next. Got another
I am lost for words.
All right. We got another super chat. Rat Lover with 20 pounds says, also look forward to seeing you in London because I'm such a huge fan and I'm glad you're coming back to London. Also have ideas for film review. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Talking about me?
She could be. I don't know. So a lot of your fans are going to be in London, I take it. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Well, anyway, but before we get to announcements, I don't know. Does anything else come to mind about this whole topic? I think we've covered a lot, but I mean, there's just, it's like we're talking about young people getting older, right? It's hard to talk about is objectivism hurting or helping your dating life without, to me, it's hard to discuss that without looking at like what it means to like grow up and to actually like become an adult and to gain maturity. So there's a sort of a pattern you see everywhere, you know, people like Malcolm X and Tupac Shakur, when they were young, very, very angry at white people. And then as they got a little older, they were like, by the end of their lives, they were like, okay, I was immature back then. And really, inductive evidence shows me that you can't put everybody in a box, no matter how much racism we've experienced. You can't put all white people in one box. So, like, to me, that strikes true. I mean, it rings similar to really anything. So similar with accepting this new philosophy, and it's so revolutionary. You got to be very careful, and you got to really still live life inductively.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I guess closing remarks is, well, first of all, I want to agree that everything gets better with age. So I think this is one of those things. Yeah, I don't want to deter anyone from, and I know that obviously this wasn't your intention. I don't want to deter anyone from the philosophy. If anything, you know, I want more people to discover it, but don't think that you have it figured out just by reading the novels and kind of, what's the word, like identifying yourself with it. There's the application, it's tough. It takes time, but I think, there's more optimism than pessimism generally in, being an objectivist.
Your point or your question about, you know, that there are positive, like optimistic and pessimistic people that are into objectivism. Mm-hmm. So there are people that are like really comfortable with dating and with meeting people, but they're like terrified of business. Like to them, like going into the industry that they want to go into is like terrifying. And you also have people that are super business savvy. Like that's their natural thing. Like they never struggle with that, but they're very apprehensive in the field of romance. And there's a bunch of other varieties of people that like, they're super comfortable in one respect, but super scared to try something in a different realm. So I think as various different types of people discover objectivism, you're going to see some objectivists or students of objectivism that seem really comfortable with dating, and and it's good that the philosophy like kind of helped them enhance what they're already interested in. And I can only hope it's also reminding them to kind of be honest and to push themselves into the arena that they're not yet comfortable with, but they want to be. So for some people it's business. So I've never had a problem with writing something and releasing it to the world. Did it my whole life. But, in other areas, such as, dealing with the opposite sex, it was something I needed to turn to for help from friends with. It was something I needed to try to gain confidence in. Whereas I have friends who they're the most comfortable people on earth when it comes to meeting the opposite sex, but they are terrified to post anything on YouTube or to do anything like that. So, it's all about challenging yourself to kind of go where you're not yet comfortable, but you want to be comfortable. So, there's definitely a lot of potential, for students of objectivism to think that romantic love is contained in these books in a way that it needs to kind of fall out of the sky, or it needs to just kind of appear out of nowhere. And that's just not really the way life works.
No, absolutely. And if anything, real life works much better. So I think the minute you stop obsessing about this love story, for example, that you liked in one of Rand's books or any other books, and stop kind of idolizing that, the characters and how it happened for them, life isn't fiction. It's so much better. Yeah.
All right. Another super chat from Rat Lover, 10 pounds. I'm such a huge fan of Rucka, but I like Maria too, though.
I thank you very much for that clarification and for the additional 10 pounds or dollars in the piggy bank.
And the word two is supposed to have 2 O's there. So we're going to be sending the super chat back. I'm kidding. All right. Well, anyway, I guess that covers this topic. Maybe we'll continue it from another angle next time. Do you want to make some announcements for kind of what's coming up with ARC?
So today we have Calumet K Fiction Book Club at 7 p.m. UK time. And then at 8:30 p.m. UK time, we have James Valiant, who will be discussing Ayn Rand's essay, Argument from Intimidation. And then at 10 p.m. UK time, we have Artful Tuesday with Kirk Barbera and Luke Travers. So,
sorry, I meant more with the week that the ARC is coming along. I didn't mean to make you do my job, which was to read
sorry,
all these.
I wasn't sure if this.
I didn't mean to. Yeah, that was my fault.
Well, no, like you mentioned, from the 28th of March, that whole week, we have the Ayn Rand Con here in London. So, if there's anyone who's watching this who hasn't yet planned to attend in person, please do. We will be kicking it off with a very eventful Monday, where we will have the Daily Objective in person with Rucka and with Nikos. And we will also have the Psychology of Self-Creation with Gina Gorlin and Tal Spani. The whole in-person event will run from 6 to 9 p.m. UK time. So if you're in London, come along. It's free for anyone who wants a slightly different Monday than ordinary.
That will be one interesting Monday. All right. All right. Well, I guess, do you have time to jump on Clubhouse for a few minutes? We haven't done Clubhouse in a while on the show because we keep on going for so long. But yeah, let's do that. All right, everybody. See you on Clubhouse. Thanks, Maria. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Likewise. Thanks.
And goodbye.